Sandy, I want this to be good. I want this to be fun. But you're the co-founder of Polk Audio, of Definitive Technology, and now GoldenEar Technology. 3 very successful American speaker companies. You must be doing something right. So what does it take to be successful in the audio business? Apparently you know.
Well, it's an interesting question. I'm not quite sure that I know, but I mean,
you know
I know
more than I do.
I mean, I know, certainly one thing is it takes a lot of hard work. It's sort of an obvious answer.
Okay.
But, it's more than that. I mean, when I started in the audio industry back in 1972, when I graduated college, I went to Johns Hopkins along with my 2 partners, Matt Polk and George Klopfer, and none of us had been trained to do anything in particular. And I had a passion for hi-fi, for audio. And as did Matt, and George was kind of into woodworking. And we got together and we started this thing with no experience, and it ended up being very, very successful. So, that, was the beginning of my careers, I guess.
Yeah.
And it, I had a passion. I had a passion for what we're doing. I was very, very interested in music. I mentioned to you earlier last night I was at the Village Vanguard hearing Ravi Coltrane till 12:30 at night. And I'm still very into music. It's the reason why I got involved in this. And I like gear, and that's the other thing. And then I guess the other aspect, which probably is important in some way, is that my dad was an accountant, so I have some background and understanding of business. I never went to business school. When I went to Hopkins, I studied social and behavioral science, but I just have a fairly, astute understanding of, reality as it, relates to products and selling them in the marketplace.
But when you start with Polk, there's a lot of speakers out there. They're successful. Blah, blah. How do you make something to break out from the pack of already established brands?
Well, in terms of product, again, that's passion and creativity. One of the things which has been consistent throughout my 3 companies is that I am not an engineer, but I really know the product loudspeakers pretty well. And I am sort of like a producer. I'm not the director per se, but I'm more like the producer. I come up with the concept, which is coming from marketing. I sketch it out. I then give it to engineering, and engineering takes my vision or my dream or my concept or whatever, and they turn it into reality. And that's rather unusual because in a lot of companies, the ideas just gestate within engineering. Engineering creates the products, puts it down on the table in front of marketing and says, go sell it. So that's really been quite a difference in terms of what's gone on.
Okay, there's one. Okay, that does distinguish you from a lot of other of the competition, right? That's pretty cool. But what was the first hit that Polk had?
Well, the first hit, we had two we called them bookshelf speakers. They were rather large. There was the Monitor 7 and the Monitor 10.
Right, Monitor 10, that's how I
Yeah,
know
the
that.
Polk Monitor 10, which is very interesting. I had read recently, Robert Harley from TAS, that was his first real speaker. It got him really going, and I've heard that from a bunch of other people. So, the 7 was the first of that group, and it, kind of, if you look through all the products that I've done, there's a consistency. That had a 6.5-inch active driver, bass mid-range driver. It had originally an 8 and a 10-inch passive radiator, a 1-inch dome, and it was something, we came out with it really to compete with the large Advent, which was the king of the hill at that point in time.
Right.
And the large Advent was a different sort of a product. It was an acoustic suspension speaker with a big 10-inch woofer and a tweeter, and ours was more like a British speaker. We felt, we were taking a lot of what we saw going on with the British speakers, which were very highly regarded, and brought it into something, more American. the speakers that we use the quad electrostat, of course, as a reference, but also the Spender BC1 at that point in time. And then we came out with the Polk 10. And an interesting little story that goes along with the Polk 10 was, we were very friendly with John Dahlquist and Saul Morantz, who, Saul's, and John were, great, important people in the development of the high end. Certainly Saul, in many ways, created the high end. And they had the DQ10, which was a very successful speaker. And then there was the DQ6, which was sort of stillborn, if you remember. This was a speaker, a bookshelf speaker, that was supposed to be a more mass product than the DQ10 that John had designed. And as the story goes, he had a pair of prototypes which was superb, and one day they were stolen from the back of his car, and he could never recreate them. And so I got a call from Saul, again, who was a friend, and he called me up and he said, Sandy, at the upcoming Washington Hi-Fi show, we have a suite of 2 rooms. In one room we were showing the DQ10, the other room we were going to show the DQ6. There is no DQ6. How would you guys like to take that room? So the Polk 10, in many ways, became what the DQ6 was supposed to be. And that really, propelled us, rocketed us into the marketplace.
So to succeed, you need to have at least three things. You need to have a great product. That's the obvious part, I think, that audiophiles would think about. But you also have to have distribution to sell your product, which isn't an easy thing for a new company to have. But you also have to be able to make the product consistently, like manufacture them that all sort of close enough to the same thing.
Right.
If you don't do all three, if you're a startup, you can't do all three really, really, really well, you're going to fail. Because if you have a great product but shitty distribution and you can't make it consistently, you're going to be gone.
Doesn't matter. There's a lot of great products out there that have failed, as we know.
Because of that.
Yes.
Because they can't do all three. And there's more, right? There's probably more things. Am I missing something?
Well, I mean, you have to know how to promote the product, how to make people aware of the product. You have to, produce it efficiently, and again, you have to know how to organize a business so that it's, a business has to be profitable or it can't continue. So part of the key is to come up with a product that is good enough that it can sell at its retail price and everybody can make a profit on it, and it still presents tremendous value for the people that buy it.
Right.
So that's a real challenge.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's huge, actually, right?
And you have to have a good feeling for that. I mean, you have to understand that to begin with, and then you have to, again, develop the products along those lines to come up with products that, can be made efficiently, can be sold profitably, and still present tremendous value.
But I think in terms of good, in terms of sound quality, since sound quality is so subjective, it's not just I think it's good or just Joe thinks it's good. It's that knowing what a broad spectrum of audiophile people would think of as good. I think those are different things, right? Just not like you just like it. You have a feel for what people want.
Well, again, it's a question in terms of the sound. It's a question of balancing out all the different aspects, because no loudspeaker is perfect. All loudspeakers are very far from perfect. So it's a question of understanding and making decisions and compromises that still maintain the musicality and the you are there live ability of the speakers, with making them smooth and natural and sounding good with all kinds of music. And what's important, I mean, to me, imaging is really an important thing, a very critical thing. For a lot of people, part of the thing with speakers is everybody has their own checklist, I guess I'd call it, of what's important, and everybody's checklist maybe is a little bit different. So, you have to decide for yourself what are the important things and the priorities in terms of coming up with that. And again, you have to have a good idea of, what good is and what live music sounds like. A lot of people, I mean, there are loudspeaker designers that really don't know what live music sounds like.
I believe it.
And if you hear, I mean, there are a lot of other very, very good speakers other than the ones that I create. But there are other speakers out there, you listen to them, you scratch your head, and you wonder what the people were thinking
What are
of
they
that
thinking?
designed this.
Yeah. They have their own opinion of what good sound, what comprises good sound. I think that's one of the tricky parts. You love art, you're an art collector, and do you think that that sort of reinforces it? I mean, is that part of what makes Sandy Gross is your approach to your aesthetic sense of visuals and what something sounds like? Is that overstating it, in other words?
Well, I think so. I mean, certainly in terms of, the industrial design of the product, I think having a good feel for, coming, I guess, from art, knowing what really looks good is important. Part of what's gone on, if you follow, my 3 companies and the products that we've made, I think, as it should be, I think the product that we're making at GoldenEar, both from a visual standpoint and a sonic standpoint, is the best that we've done. I mean, it should be, and it is. But again, having a good visual sense of what it should look like is important. As you mentioned earlier when we were talking about the early Wilson speakers, big, giant, you wondered about,
Right.
the industrial design of those. Right. And we try, with the current speakers, we put a lot of effort into trying to come up with something that looks really nice, because that's not unimportant. It's just
Yeah,
like,
you live with it. I mean,
yeah, it's
part
just
of
like
your
with the
life.
car. I mean, when you go out and you look at some, fancy high performance sports cars,
Right.
what they look like is a very important part of their gestalt, as with loudspeakers. I mean, I remember I did a sales training once. It's another interesting little story. I did a sales training once some time ago, and I tried to get this particular dealer and his sales staff to understand that people buy these products not just to please themselves, but to show off to their friends. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's typical of a lot of things that we indulge in. And I mentioned, when somebody buys a new Ferrari, they don't necessarily buy it to go race around at 200 miles an hour. They buy it to drive it over to their friend's house and say, here's my new Ferrari, what do you think?
Right.
So it's the same thing with the audio gear. And at that particular dealer, though, the salespeople in this dealer, they wouldn't accept that. They shut off as soon as I presented that concept.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, they're not the smartest people.
No, and it's that dealer's no longer in business either.
I was going to say. I can't say I'm asking this question because I'm personally interested in the answer, but it seems to be a thing with a lot of audiophiles right now, is this move towards active speakers.
Well, we actually have a product that's in development called the Digital Active 3, which is, very much along those lines. It's a product we've been working on for several years. It's a fully active biamped speaker that self-streams. So in other words, if you get a pair of these speakers, you plug it in and set the app up, and away you go.
Right.
You're streaming high quality audio off the internet, and the sound quality is superb. So the concept is we're conceiving that, there are people that would like really high quality audio, but want the delivery system, so to speak, much simpler. Probably we'll be shipping it in the second quarter of 2020. But we did demonstrate it at CD a year ago. The response was fabulous, because basically it's biamp, so you have 2 channels, in our case, of AB amplification,
Good.
not Class D, directly hooked up to the drivers, and then you've got a very complex DSP engine, which is programmed to control all the performance parameters. And rather than running it through a passive crossover, it's done, with the DSP, and this gives you control over what's going on that you can really never achieve with a passive crossover. So it's, it's something that's coming. I hope to also offer that. That's a small bookshelf speaker, stand mount bookshelf speaker. I hope to offer the same electronics package in a small floor standing speaker.
Oh, okay.
Because, once you go through all the expense and the time of developing that, electronics package, which is not a simple thing, and writing all the software, the same package can be used in a small floor standing speaker. So, it'll be interesting to see if there actually is a market for for a speaker of this quality in that kind of format. But we're working hard on it. The DA3 also, just to mention, we just finished CEDIA, and the DA3, the industrial design and cosmetics of that was very, very well received. So I decided to go ahead with a more conventional passive version of that speaker, which we showed a couple weeks ago. It's called the Bookshelf Reference X, or BRX. We showed that at CEDIA, and people were totally blown away. So, that's coming too.
And do you have prices in mind for these
Well,
things?
the BRX will be $1,400 a pair. The passive, the active streaming speaker, I think is going to be closer to $3,000 a pair.
How do you know when you're done with a given design? Because you want to keep making it better, right? So.
Well, that's part of the process also, going back to earlier questions. I mean, at some point, you have to decide that you're done. You can keep working on it forever.
Right.
And never be done, but from a commercial standpoint, you have to decide when you're done. So again, that's a learned skill, I guess.
So GoldenEar started in 2010, so you're coming up on the 10th anniversary.
Yes.
And you got big surprises?
Well, I don't know. We'll see. Who knows? Who knows? We work hard. We keep coming up with exciting products, and people I speak personally with a lot of consumers that call up. They're sort of surprised they can get me on the phone, but I think it really grounds me in reality. Again, a lot of loudspeaker designers never speak to a real consumer, and they have some strange concept of who the consumers are, and I have a good idea of who the consumers are because I speak with them every day.
Have you always done that with Polk and Definitive?
Yes.
Well? Yeah, well, we should have brought that up earlier.
Yeah.
Because I think that does separate you. I mean, in terms of the question, how to be successful in the audio business, I think that was key. Sure.
No, you have to understand what real people are actually looking for. I guess that's part of it. Yeah. And sometimes you want to give them maybe more than they're looking for, but you at least have to give them everything that they're looking for, plus.
But do any of that, because people want all sorts of things, do any of them really, really surprise you? I mean, they aren't necessarily achievable, but do they ever say things that really, because you've heard so many, you've had so many of these conversations over the years, but do you ever get surprised?
Well, some people are looking for things that are just impossible.
Well, of course.
I mean, people that want a small bookshelf speaker that delivers the sound pressure of when they're sitting in the front row of a rock concert.
Right.
That's not happening.
Not happening. Not yet.
Not yet.
Not ever, really. Yeah. All right. I think we've done it.
We're good?
Yeah, we're good. My guest today is Sandy Gross from GoldenEar Technology. Thank you so much, Sandy, for being here. Well, I'm actually in your home, and so I thank you for me being here. And my name is Steve Guttenberg. This is the Audiophiliac Daily Show. Thank you guys for watching. See you again real soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Steve.